Hi again. Had a little interruption there as my cat dropped by and my son dropped by. So I thought I'd go back to Genesis chapter 2:19. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was his name. So Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field, but for Adam there was not found a help comparable to him. I just thought I'd introduce you to my cat Darcy, and here he is. He'll be a co host sometimes. I just want to speak about calling animals names. Who names the cat usually is the owner, and Adam here names all the cattle. He doesn't name them a whole bunch of different names, but I believe he said this animal is a cattle, or whatever the original Hebrew language would be. I don't know what that would be. But in our society, we name specific names to the species. This cat is named Darcy, not named by me, named by the person who originally owned the cat. I kind of inherited the cat because somebody had to take him in. Anyways, he knows his name. When I call his name, he knows who he is. And if he hears his name, sometimes he comes, or sometimes he just does what he wants to. He's not always an obedient cat. Anyways, they become a companion. But yet, I can't carry a conversation with Darcy. He can do it, especially a cat, do what he wants. He seems to get fed, and as long as he's fed, he's happy. As long as he has a place to lay, he's happy, as he is right now. But people need relationships. People need someone to talk to. I can't go around with animals all day and expect to keep my sanity. And so, as we look at this verse again, we see that so Adam gave names to the cattle, this is verse 20, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field, but that's not really satisfying. So it says, but for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him. Comparable means opposite and parallel. They have the ability to communicate and desire a relationship the way God has created, but also they're not the same. I don't know about you, but if I found a personality exactly like me, I'd probably drive myself crazy. Verse 21 of chapter 2. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. But here he took a part of man, his creation, the one that he desires to have a relationship, and created someone out of that rib of a man to form someone that would be able to have a relationship with, someone that he would be able to enjoy and have company with. So this is not an insult to women. It is actually a compliment that we complement each other. And the desire is for man and woman to be together. Because as it says in this verse, again 22, you see that be there, and he brought her to the man. Genesis 2:23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she is taken out of a man. Now, let me say this, that what he is saying here, Adam, which is the first man, she is now part of me. That's a good thing. That is, she's a woman, and that word actually means out of man. And there's nothing wrong with that as an insult. Woman is a good thing. It means that person is a relationship. And that's what the word means. 24 of chapter 2. Therefore, as a result of this woman being with the man brought together by God, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife were not ashamed. This says a lot. Now we know Adam and Eve didn't have a mother and father. It's talking about future generations. A man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, so there would be other people to populate the world. In other words, what we do as man and wife, what we do together, is both for the same goal. And that goal, of course, would be, first of all, to honor and love God. Second of all, love one another. It's monogamous marriage here. And they shall become one flesh. In other words, they don't actually physically become one flesh, but in God's eyes, they become one person. And this joining is referring to marriage. And they would be joined together and become like one to God. And so we see that the really wrong thing to do is divorce. Because it also says in a verse in the Bible, in Matthew, New Testament, what God has put together, let no one tear asunder, which is the King James Version, or tear apart. God puts male and female together in a marriage relationship, and if they're in love, you go through the engagement and they get married and they have a ceremony and they do it before God. That's how marriage is done many years ago. Now everybody seems to go to the courts or wherever, City Hall, and do it not before God, and they don't have that relationship with God. But this is something that God never intended to be torn apart. And it also said in verse 25 of chapter 2 that they were both naked, and the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. In other words, this time where sin did not enter into the world yet, they were not ashamed. Their sexual relationship was real between a man and his wife. That was what God blessed. Some people say, well, God doesn't allow sex. That's not true. He allows sex within a marriage relationship according to the Bible. Why? Because he created us, and he created us as beings to multiply the earth. And so therefore, to multiply the earth, he wants a relationship between a man and a wife, husband and wife, and that husband and wife will have children, and throughout the years, they will multiply throughout years to come, and they will have relationships within the marriage, and they will be compatible, and they will live life that they can raise their children. But again, the man shall leave his father and mother. So it is a separation of the parents from their children, and they will develop their own relationships. They will not remain with a father and mother. And we all have in-laws, right? And we don't really want to live with them. It doesn't work that way. We want to have our own, start a new life as man and wife. So without getting into too much marriage counseling or whatever, the important thing is that God put them together in a marriage relationship, and therefore God expects us to stay together. So we are going to look at next time the fall.